June 2009, I read the prologue of this new version at an open mic in Chicago. The crowd was polite. I started over, chapter by chapter. Finally, in 2011, I got my big break. A woman I met at the Iowa Writers Festival happened to be related to the editor of Grove Atlantic, and she convinced them to read the manuscript. Grove Atlantic, the publishers of the Vietnam War bestseller Matterhorn. Karl Marlantes, the author of Matterhorn, has struggled for 30 years with his novel before being discovered by Grove. They were my dream publishers. Meanwhile, on my triathlon quest, I was making progress. In 2011, I qualified for the national championship at the Olympic distance. My coach persuaded me to try an Ironman at Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, that was held in June 2012. The Ironman is a 2.5-mile swim, 112 miles on the bike, and a 26-mile run. I trained with a group intensely for 6 months. At 6 a.m. on June 6, 2012, I waded into the frigid waters of Lake Coeur d'Alene with 2,500 other triathletes. It took me 92 minutes to complete the swim. That was a good time for me. But on the bike course, I struggled with the last long uphill climb. The wind shifted into my face and my speed slipped from 8 to 7 to 6 to 5 miles per hour. Most people can walk faster than that. Then, with sweat dripping in my eyes, my leg muscles burning, I remembered the final words of the inspirational video they showed us the night before. The only thing you can control is your attitude. It sounds hokey, but it worked. I stopped cursing the mountain and ordered myself to enjoy the ride. I was up and over the final hill before I realized it. And even though at that time I had never attempted a marathon, I ran very, very slowly the entire 26 miles. As I entered the home stretch, which even at the 15th hour was still lined with cheering spectators, I heard the announcer say my name and then do a double take. Wow, 61 years old, his first Ironman. Len Joy, you are an Ironman. I sprinted the last 10 yards. Soon after the Ironman, Grove Atlantic gave me their answer, and it wasn't what I wanted to hear. Good story, but too many characters covering too many years. I was discouraged, but by now I had spent over 6 years on this novel. I couldn't stop now. I rewrote it again, cutting out 30 years and half the characters. Now I only had a mini-epic. Despite years of rejection, I confidently sent my query to the top-tier agents, and then to the agents who had indicated an interest in that kind of novel, and finally to anyone who was accepting queries. No response. Previous round of queries, I had moved up the food chain of agent rejections to the not right for us, thanks for submitting email. Now I was back to the let's not respond and hope he stops bothering us level. I reluctantly posted a notice on my blog in September 2012 that I had given up on the novel. A week later, 3 months after I had completed that Ironman competition, I was contacted by the editor of Hark New Era Publishing, a new company. They said they would be interested in publishing American Pastime if I were willing to make some structural changes. They were not minor changes. I looked at what they wanted, and I had a feeling very similar to what I had felt 3 months earlier on that bike trail at Coeur d'Alene. I think it's called despair. My first reaction was that what they wanted was impossible, but I decided to try it anyways. I had to completely restructure the novel and rewrite most of the chapters. But this time I had someone working with me, someone invested in the outcome. It took another year, but with their help, I wrote a much better book. Finally, in April 2014, 8 years, 9 months, and 3 days after my niece asked me to write that story, American Pastime was published. I was excited to be published, and even more excited that people read the book, and some honestly loved it. I had some really great reviews, and not all of them were from friends and family. If life were a novel, that would be the end. But life goes on. I had a great relationship with my publisher, and they had planned to publish my second novel, Better Days. It was a husband and wife team, the publishers, and they had a growing family, and they couldn't make the business work, so they shut it down and gave me back the rights to American Pastime. So I'm currently looking for an agent or publisher for my second novel, Better Days. My elevator pitch for that novel, in case any of you out there are literary agents, they had a parade for Darwin Burr back in '76 when his team won the state title. Now he has a cushy job working for his boyhood friend, coasting through his adult years on the fading memory of schoolboy heroics. But when his friend vanishes just as the FBI shows up claiming he's the head of a criminal enterprise and threatening to send Darwin to prison if he doesn't cooperate, Darwin learns that in this world heroes don't get parades. Okay, I'm 66 now and actively pursuing my writing and triathlon careers. The nice feature of triathlons is that they're age adjusted, so I don't only have to compete against men in the same 5-year age bracket. I can't do that in the writing game, unfortunately, and while I'm sometimes frustrated that the gatekeepers are all in their 20s and 30s and seem to be much more interested in folks their own age, I try to maintain a healthy perspective. Writing is a very difficult field to make a living these days. I feel for any young person trying to make it as a writer without a day job. I know the odds are against me ever making any significant income from my work, but it has already paid a huge financial dividend. When I was about 5 years into my pursuit of a writing career, the woman who cuts my hair told me about this new device from Amazon called a Kindle. She's an avid reader and she loved it. I had the kids get me one for Christmas in 2008, and I was so impressed and convinced that one day my novel would be published and available on a Kindle that early in 2009, I decided to buy Amazon stock for my retirement plan. 800 shares at $65 a share. If I had been pursuing a writing career, I would never have considered buying that stock. I still own Amazon, which was trading at $1,350 per share last week. So while my writing career has not paid off in any significant royalties, less than $100 last year, it still made a very nice contribution to my retirement plan. And as a final note, last winter I was invited back to my alma mater, University of Rochester, to participate in their Neely lecture series. I had time to kill before my talk, and for some reason I decided to Google that professor who had so aggressively criticized my term paper. I figured he was long gone, but I was wrong. He was still at the university, and there was a link to the ratings he received from his students. He was ripped by everyone who reviewed him, repeatedly described as elitist, disinterested, misogynist. I have to admit that made me feel pretty good. Thank you all for listening, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Did you ever think about self-publishing all that time?
Yes, and I think about it all the time because it's a way to get the book out. There's so many books out there that are self-published, and there's some really good ones, like 10% maybe are really good, and then there's 90% that aren't very good. And I wanted someone to say this is good enough to publish, and so that's what I still want to do. But it's definitely an opportunity.
Well, how did you support your family through all these years of trying to get a book together?
I married a woman who was a lawyer.
I have a question. A lot of books are written, and what is the publisher, once they decide to do it, how do they help you promote your book? Did you go on a tour? Did they spend money on advertising? Did they do enough to promote your book?
That's a dilemma. I mean, if you're not with one of the 5 major publishers, what my publisher gave me was they worked on the book, they edited it, and they helped me to get reviews. But as a small independent publisher, it's up to you to take the initiative. Like I hired a publicist, and I went to different places and promoted the book myself with their help. But if you're not Random House or someone else can send out 2,000 books to people for reviews, and the key is to get people to review your book and create, feedback. But you're up at my level right now. You have to do a lot of it yourself, and I'm willing to do that. It's better than selling engines, It's something.
Okay. I think back here.
Sorry, I didn't hear. Did you sell one book or several books? Or none?
What? How many books? I probably sold 600 or 700.
Oh, wow.
And it's online, so it's it's online through Amazon, so I get every quarter they send me a royalty of $3.40. Still out there.
Other than Amazon, is your book available anywhere else?
Yeah, I have a crate of them in my car, and I brought some here, paperback. $5.
You brought some books here for sale?
$5, yeah. Yeah, I read books. I always have books available. I want readers.
Will you autograph them if someone buys them?
What?
Will you autograph the book?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So what are your kids doing nowadays?
Well, my son is a postdoc PhD in chemistry in Ann Arbor, in the University of Michigan. And my daughter's, one daughter is, they're both artists. So I have two artists and a scientist. My youngest daughter is, has their own custom jewelry, would you call it? Fashion jewelry, Venerate jewelry. And oldest daughter is, works for a caterer in the food business. And does her art off the book. Yeah.
Okay, I think that's a good point to stop. So you'll be up, you'll sell your book for those who want to see you. Thank you very much, Len.
Hey, thank you. Well, thank you for letting me have it. Thank you.